"Sir, can you fix my toy? It was our last gift from Dad," a girl told the CEO Millionaire at the cafe. The cafe was quiet, tucked into the corner of a narrow street where the city's noise softened into murmurs. The clock ticked past 4. Soft jazz played low from the speakers, blending with the scent of coffee and damp pavement. Elliot Walker sat at his usual table by the window, a porcelain cup resting on its saucer. He wore a charcoal coat over a pressed white shirt, his tie loosened slightly, like he had forgotten to finish undoing his day. His posture was straight but not rigid, held together with the kind of stillness that came from habit, not ease. His eyes, though, gave him away. Distant, tired, elsewhere. He came here every Saturday. Same time, same black coffee, same seat. He never brought a laptop, never took calls. He just sat, watching the rain, thinking, or trying not to. The door chimed. A little girl entered with careful steps, clutching something tight in her arms. Her blonde curls bounced slightly with each movement. She could not have been older than 4. Her coat was too big, sleeves hiding her hands, and her pink sneakers were scuffed at the toes. She walked straight past the counter and stopped in front of Elliot's table. Clutching a stuffed bear with one ear dangling by a thread, she looked up at him with wide eyes and said, very seriously, "Sir, can you fix my toy? It was our last gift from Dad." She paused. "Mom says we shouldn't throw away things with love in them." Elliot blinked. The silence stretched between them. It was not the bear that moved something in him. It was the way she said it, with reverence, with quiet sorrow far too deep for someone her size. A kind of respect for love that some adults never learn. He looked at the bear, then back at the girl. Her fingers were tight around it, like it might fall apart if she let go. There was no fear in her eyes, just hope. Quiet, steady hope. "Mia?" a soft voice called. The girl turned. A woman in her early 30s walked over, tall, graceful in a modest way, with pale gold hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her beige coat was simple, her face clean of makeup, yet there was warmth in her eyes, a calm resilience etched into her features. "I'm so sorry," she said gently to Elliot. "She must have wandered off. I hope she's not bothering you." Elliot looked from the woman to the child. "She asked me to fix her bear," he said, voice a little quieter than usual. The woman looked at the toy, then at her daughter. She smiled, small, apologetic. "It's been through a lot, but she won't sleep without it." "It was from Dad," Mia repeated, looking back up at Elliot. "Before he went to heaven." The smile faded from the woman's lips, though her hand gently came to rest on Mia's shoulder. Elliot said nothing for a moment. Then he extended his hand slowly. "May I?" he asked. Mia looked at her mother. Hannah nodded, and the girl handed him the bear with the care of someone passing on a secret. He took it gently. The ear hung by a few threads, the fur worn thin. It had clearly been loved. Again and again. "I'll fix it," he said. Mia's eyes lit up, not with childish glee, but with quiet gratitude, like she understood more than she should. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. Then she added, almost to herself, "I'll take care of it better this time." Elliot swallowed. His fingers curled slightly around the bear, and something in his chest tightened, something long, quiet. He stood slowly. "I'll bring it back next week," he said. Hannah looked surprised. "That's very kind of you." He gave a small nod, then turned. The door chimed behind him as he stepped into the gray light. The clouds hung low, but for the first time in a long while, Elliot Walker walked not out of routine but with purpose. Elliot stood alone in his apartment, the city lights flickering beyond the tall windows. He had not bothered to close the curtains. He never did. The silence no longer bothered him. It had become something he understood, something familiar. He set the stuffed bear gently on the dining table, cleared the surface, and pulled a chair close. It felt like he was preparing for delicate surgery. He rolled up his sleeves, opened a small sewing kit from the drawer, and stared at the torn ear. It was just a toy. Fabric, thread, stuffing. And yet, it felt heavier than it should in his hands. He threaded the needle slowly and began to stitch, loop by careful loop. His fingers were stiff, unsure. They were used to keyboards, not this kind of repair. But he kept going, steady and focused. With each stitch, something inside him loosened, not in his hands, but in his chest. He remembered the sound of boots on hardwood, the door creaking open late at night. His father, upright and unreadable in uniform. The few hugs they shared had been brief, stiff. The silence at dinner was always orderly, never warm. Colonel Walker did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His presence alone commanded attention. Discipline was his way of loving. Respect, his form of connection. And Elliot had tried. For a long time. Until the day he said no. He was 12 when he told his father he would not apply to the military academy. His father had come home expecting celebration. Instead, Elliot laid out a folder of computer science scholarships on the counter. The silence that followed had lasted weeks. "I am not asking you," his father said. "I know," Elliot replied, "but I am not asking for permission either." They had not been the same since. Even after Elliot graduated from MIT, built his company, became a millionaire by 25, his father never said, "I'm proud of you," only, "Do not let it go to your head." Still, Elliot showed up. Birthdays, holidays, always brief visits, always measured. Like two people sharing a house, not a home. The needle pricked his finger. He winced, sucked the blood, and continued. He thought of his 10th birthday. That year, his father had been home. No party, no candles, just a plain box after dinner. Inside was a model airplane, military grade, his father had said. "Do not break it." Elliot hadn't. But he had lost it years later during a move. Still, he remembered the cool feel of the metal, the sharp smell of glue, the way it felt impossibly fragile. Why had he never told his father how much it meant to him? Why had he never kept it safe? He finished the last stitch and gently folded the ear back into place. It was not perfect, but it held, and that mattered more than he expected. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the bear. The room was still quiet. But this time, the silence felt different. Hollow, not peaceful. He picked up the bear, ran his fingers over the stitching and whispered, "I should have kept that plain." He was not sure if he meant the toy or something deeper. For a long moment, he sat there, just breathing. Then the thought came, slow and heavy. What would it have felt like to say, "I love you, Dad"? Not in his head, not through effort or silence. Just say it. But that was never a phrase he had learned to use. Not yet. The following Saturday, Elliot arrived at the cafe precisely at 4, as he always did. But this time, he was not just carrying his usual calm exterior and empty thoughts. In his hands was a paper bag, folded neatly at the top, with something soft inside, a bear that now had 2 ears again, stitched with uneven but careful hands. He sat at the same table by the window, the one slightly apart from the others. The weather had turned warmer, and sunlight slanted through the glass, catching dust in the air like flecks of gold. 10 minutes passed before the door chimed softly and the familiar pair walked in. Mia spotted him instantly. She tugged at her mother's coat, whispering something, then let go and rushed across the cafe with the urgency of a child holding back excitement. Elliot stood as she approached. He bent down slightly and handed her the bag. Her hands reached in slowly, as if unwrapping a treasure. The moment her fingers touched the bear, she gasped, gently, reverently. "You fixed him," she breathed, cradling the toy against her chest. "His ears back," she added, her voice filled with something purer than joy. It was gratitude. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she said, over and over, throwing her arms around his waist in a sudden hug. He froze for a second, startled, then placed a hand lightly on her back. "You are welcome," he murmured, unsure what else to say. Hannah reached them, a little out of breath. She smiled, though her eyes glistened. "I did not expect you to go through all that trouble," she said softly. "It was not trouble," Elliot replied. She looked at him for a moment, her gaze steady but gentle. "Still, thank you. It means more than I can say." He nodded, almost awkwardly, and gestured toward the table. "Would you like to join me?" She hesitated, then smiled and said, "Just for a little while." From then on, every Saturday became a quiet tradition. Hannah and Mia would arrive shortly after he did. They would sit together for a while, sometimes at his table, sometimes one next to it. Mia would color or play with her bear while the adults talked. Nothing too personal at first, just life, work, books, weather. But slowly, the layers began to peel back. Elliot learned that Hannah worked 3 jobs: mornings as a cashier in a small grocery store, afternoons helping organize books at the local library, nights cleaning offices in buildings like the one Elliot owned. "It is not glamorous," she once said with a shrug, "but it is honest, and it keeps us going." She never complained, not about being tired, or being alone, or struggling to make ends meet. Her eyes were clear, her words simple, and always laced with a quiet kind of strength. When Elliot asked about Mia's father, Hannah answered without bitterness. "He died in a car accident. 3 years ago, she was just a baby." There was a short silence. "I still talk to him sometimes," she added with a smile that trembled. "In my head, especially when things get hard." Elliot looked at her, surprised not by her loss, but by the way she carried it, with grace, not grief. "What about you?" she asked once. "Any family nearby?" "My father," Elliot replied. "But we do not talk much." She did not press. She only nodded, as if understanding without needing the full story. And Elliot found himself wanting to fill in the silence, not because he felt obligated, but because, for the first time in years, someone was listening without expectation. One afternoon, as the sun dipped lower in the sky and cast long shadows across the table, Hannah said something that stayed with him long after they left. "I believe things get better," she said, sipping from a chipped ceramic mug. "Not because they magically do, but because people choose to do the right thing even when it's hard. That's how life gets better, one choice at a time." Elliot said nothing. But that night, back in his apartment, he caught himself thinking about her words. Not because they were profound, but because they were true. And maybe, just maybe, he was starting to believe them too. The spring air was soft that Sunday morning, the kind that made the world feel newly washed. The sky was clear, the breeze gentle, and the park buzzed with the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves. Elliot arrived early, as always, but this time, he was not alone. Mia skipped ahead, clutching a paper bag with colored pencils poking out the top. Her laughter rang through the air like music. Hannah walked beside Elliot, her coat unbuttoned, a sundress catching the breeze. There was something peaceful about her presence, like walking beside someone who carried stillness without effort. Mia ran straight toward the old-fashioned carousel in the center of the park. Elliot bought her a ticket and watched as she chose a wooden horse painted in faded blue. As it began to spin, she gripped the pole tightly, her face glowing, hair flying. Her giggles floated across the grass. Hannah smiled and settled onto a nearby bench. She pulled a worn paperback from her bag, opened it, then looked up again, watching Mia with quiet joy. Elliot sat beside her. "You look like you do this often," he said. "Every now and then, when we can." They sat in easy silence, watching Mia circle around again and again. Her happiness was contagious, and Elliot felt it settling in his chest, warm, light, unfamiliar. When the ride ended, Mia ran back and flopped onto the grass beside them. "Best day ever," she declared. hugging her bear close. They spent the afternoon wandering. Ice cream dripped down Mia's hand as she tried to eat faster than it melted. Hannah gently wiped her cheek while Mia giggled and squirmed. Later, they found a shady spot under a tree, and Mia pulled out her pencils and sketch pad. Elliot lay back in the grass, arms behind his head. He listened to Hannah flip through pages, Mia humming as she drew. He hadn't felt this free in a long time. "Done," Mia called. She crawled over and held up her drawing. 3 stick figures, one tall, with a tie, one with long hair and a dress, one small in the middle, holding both their hands. Above it, in uneven letters, it read, "Mom, me and him." And below, almost hidden, "Maybe?" Elliot stared at the picture. He swallowed hard, something stirring inside, a strange ache that was not quite pain, not quite joy. Hannah leaned in to look. She smiled, but her eyes were wet. "I think she's trying to tell us something," she said softly. Elliot nodded, still looking at the drawing. Later, as they walked along the pond's edge, Elliot spoke before he could stop himself. "My father and I, we were never close." Hannah looked over but stayed quiet. "He was in the military," Elliot continued. "Everything was rules and structure. Emotion was a distraction." "You didn't feel seen?" she asked gently. "I felt, expected, to become him." "And you didn't want to?" "I couldn't. I wanted something else. I chose it. He never forgave me." He paused, watching a duck glide across the water. "I never told him how I felt, not when I left home, not even when I made it. I don't think he ever knew how much I wanted his approval. Or maybe he did and just didn't care." Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, not with advice or pity, but with calm wisdom, "He's still here, Elliot. Some people don't get that chance. Not to fix things, not even to try." Her words settled like soft rain on dry ground. He looked at her, really looked. The sunlight caught the gold in her hair. Her eyes held no judgment, only understanding. In that moment, Elliot realized she wasn't trying to save him. She was just showing him that healing was still possible. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late. The knock on the apartment door was unexpected. Elliot had not seen his father in nearly a year. Not since the brief, obligatory Christmas lunch where they had exchanged 3 words and even fewer glances. But now, as he opened the door to find Colonel Richard Walker standing in the hallway, dressed in a crisp navy blazer, polished shoes, and his ever-present stoic expression, Elliot's breath caught. "May I come in?" his father asked. Elliot hesitated, then stepped aside. They sat in silence for a few minutes. The colonel's eyes scanned the room, modern, minimalist, spotless, before settling on his son. "I hear you've been spending time with a woman," he said flatly. Elliot's jaw tensed. "Her name is Hannah." "And the child?" "Her daughter, Mia." The colonel's lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't the kind of company someone in your position should be keeping." Elliot leaned forward slightly. "What position is that exactly?" "You're a walker," his father said. "You carry a legacy. I spent my life building a name, discipline, dignity, and you're willing to throw it away for—" "Stop," Elliot said, voice firm. "Do not finish that sentence." The colonel's eyes narrowed, but he did not speak again. He stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and left without another word. 3 days later, Hannah was locking the door of the small apartment she rented on the east side of town. The afternoon sun was already low, and Mia would be finishing her art class soon. As she stepped onto the sidewalk, a sleek black car pulled up quietly beside her. The window lowered. 2 men in dark suits were inside. "Miss Hannah," one of them said, his tone formal, rehearsed, "we represent a family concerned about your recent involvement with Mr. Elliot Walker." She froze. "We're here on behalf of his father. He's offering a generous sum." The man handed her a cream envelope. No obligations, just a clean, quiet exit. Hannah took the envelope, opened it. Inside, a check, 6 figures, maybe more. She stared at it for a moment. Then, without a word, she folded the check neatly and handed it back. "I don't want his money," she said. "I want my daughter to grow up loved. That's all." The second man leaned forward, voice harder. "You'd be wise to reconsider, for your sake, and your daughter's." That was when she turned and walked away. 2 days later, it was raining. Hannah left work early to pick up Mia. As she crossed the lot behind the school, the same black car slid up beside her again, this time without warning, without invitation. One of the men stepped out. "We said this could be easy." Before she could respond, he grabbed her arm, not violently, but firmly. "Let go of me," she said sharply. Then, suddenly, another voice cut through the rain. "Let her go." The man froze. Elliot was standing 10 feet away, drenched, his eyes dark with fury. "You touch her again," Elliot said, his voice low, steady, deadly calm, "and I swear you will regret it." The man backed off instantly. Elliot stepped between them, wrapping an arm protectively around Hannah. She was shaking, but not with fear, with anger. As the car sped off, Elliot turned to her. "Are you okay?" She nodded. "I should have told you." "No," he said. "He should have told me." The next morning, Elliot stood outside the tall iron gate of his father's estate. Rain still hung in the air, clinging to the branches, the stone path, the skin of his knuckles as he rang the bell. The colonel opened the door himself. "You sent men to threaten her," Elliot said. His father stared at him, expression unreadable. "I told them to speak to her. They tried to drag her into a car. She's manipulating you." "No," Elliot snapped. "She's the first honest thing in my life in years, and you tried to crush that because it didn't look like your version of dignity." His father's silence was confirmation enough. Elliot took a slow breath, then said what he had never dared before. "I don't need your name. I don't need your money. I don't need your approval." His voice cracked, not with weakness, but with strength finally released. "If being your son means being cold, cruel, and alone, then I would rather not be your son at all." The words hung heavy in the air. The colonel said nothing. Elliot turned and walked away, rain beginning to fall again, but for once it felt clean and freeing. He had never felt lighter. The apartment was quiet, but Hannah's thoughts were loud. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while the faint hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Outside, the city wound down, distant horns, footsteps on pavement, a lone dog barking. But in her mind, nothing was still. She turned her head. Mia was curled up beside her, breathing softly, hugging the stitched-up bear that had become part of their lives in more ways than one. A tiny hand peeked out from the blanket, resting near Hannah's side. Hannah brushed a strand of hair from Mia's forehead. "Sweetheart," she whispered, voice cracking, "what should I do?" Tears came before she could stop them. She had fought for everything, every paid bill, every meal, every flicker of joy in a life that had rarely allowed space for ease. And just when she had stopped expecting softness, it had come, quietly, kindly, in the form of a man who did not try to fix her, only saw her. Elliot. He had defended her, chosen Mia, even when it meant standing against his own blood. But was it fair? Was she worth the cost? He came from a world she could never enter, wealth, power, a last name that opened doors. And she had late shifts, second-hand jackets, and dreams that always came with disclaimers. Hannah buried her face in the pillow, stifling a sob. She had never asked for this, and yet she wanted it desperately. Not for the comfort, not for the money, but for how Elliot looked at Mia like she mattered, for the way he listened, for the rare, gentle smiles he saved only for them, for the man he became when he was near them, softer, warmer, like someone finally becoming whole. But could she be the reason he lost everything? She glanced at her daughter, asleep, unaware of any of it. "I just want you to be happy," she whispered. "And I don't want you to grow up watching me ruin the best thing that's ever happened to us." She did not sleep that night. Morning came gray and still. Hannah stood at the kitchen sink, making tea with trembling hands, when a knock came at the door. She opened it to find Elliot, hair damp from the mist, jacket open. He looked tired, but calm, steady. "Can I come in?" he asked. She stepped aside. Mia was still sleeping. The apartment felt smaller than usual, quieter. Elliot looked at her for a long moment. "You've been quiet," he said. "I get it." She looked down. "I don't want to be the reason you walk away from your life, your father, your name. You have a world I don't fit in." He took a step closer. "That world means nothing if I'm in it alone." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "You don't have to prove anything," he said. "You don't need to become someone else. I'm not asking you to fit into my life. I want to build one, with you." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of you, of ruining this, of making you regret it." Elliot gently wiped her tears. "I've made a lot of decisions," he said. "Most of them calculated, but this is the only one I've ever been absolutely sure of." He paused. "I just need to know you won't leave me alone in it." Hannah met his eyes, and in them, she saw something more than love. She saw need, not desperation, but hope, a longing for something real. She stepped forward and took his hand. "I won't," she said quietly. "I'm here. With you." And for the first time in days, the heaviness in her chest began to lift. The boardroom was silent. 12 pairs of eyes stared at Elliot as he stood at the head of the table, dressed in a dark suit, shoulders squared, voice unwavering. "I'm stepping down," he said. There was a stir, a mix of shock and disbelief. One of the partners leaned forward. "Elliot, think this through. You're giving up more than just your position." "I know exactly what I'm giving up," Elliot replied calmly. "And I also know what I'm gaining." No one dared challenge him further. He walked out of that building without looking back. Outside, the sky was a pale winter gray. His car was waiting, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel rushed. He pulled out his phone and sent a single message. "I'm coming home." That evening, the apartment smelled of something warm, simple food cooked with care, not catered, not plated like art, just dinner. Hannah was setting the table while Mia sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring. The little girl looked up and beamed the moment Elliot walked in. "You're here," she said, hopping up and throwing her arms around his waist. "I told you I would be." He smiled, lifting her into a hug. Hannah turned from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "You're just in time. I hope you're okay with soup and grilled cheese." "Sounds perfect," he said. They ate at the small dining table, 3 mismatched chairs and a flickering candle in the middle. Mia chatted about her drawings, her teacher, a squirrel she had seen on the fire escape that morning. Elliot listened, really listened. His hand occasionally brushed against Hannah's under the table, and each time neither pulled away. When dinner ended, Mia took her plate to the sink, something she'd clearly been taught to do, and ran off to get her pajamas. Elliot remained at the table, his eyes fixed on the little home around him. It was nothing like the penthouse he owned uptown. The walls were off-white, the floor creaked in one corner, and the furniture looked lived in. And yet, he had never felt richer. Hannah sat beside him, folding a napkin slowly. "How did it go today?" He looked at her, then exhaled. "I left it all. The title, the inheritance, even the name." Her eyes widened slightly. "You changed your name?" "I don't want to carry something that doesn't carry me back," he said. "From now on, I'm just Elliot." She reached for his hand and held it tightly. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure," he replied. "I spent my whole life trying to live up to someone else's expectations. But today, I finally chose my own." He glanced toward the hallway where Mia's laughter echoed faintly. "And I chose both of you." Hannah's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. Later that night, after the dishes were done and Mia was asleep, they sat together on the old couch, a blanket over their legs, the television playing quietly in the background. Elliot leaned his head back, looked around the room, then down at Hannah resting beside him. "This," he whispered, more to himself than to her, "this is what home feels like." And in that ordinary quiet moment, no headlines, no boardrooms, no spotlight, he felt something he had never truly known. Peace. The backyard was filled with soft music, the scent of blooming flowers, and the gentle hum of quiet joy. It was a small wedding, just as they had wanted. Close friends, a handful of neighbors, and more laughter than formality. White folding chairs lined the grass, fairy lights strung between trees, dancing in the late afternoon sun. Hannah stood beneath a simple wooden arch, her blonde hair gathered into a loose braid, a few tendrils catching the breeze. She wore a lace dress that shimmered without trying, timeless and beautiful, like her. Mia stood proudly at her side in a pale yellow dress, clutching a tiny bouquet and beaming like she had been waiting her whole life for this day. She had insisted on walking down the aisle with both of them, her mom on one side, Elliot on the other. And Elliot, dressed in a classic navy suit, no tie, just a soft smile, looked lighter than anyone had ever seen him. Not because the weight of life had vanished, but because, at last, he had chosen which weight to carry. As vows were exchanged, there were no grand speeches, just quiet promises, words like forever and safe and home whispered in front of those who mattered. When they kissed, the guests clapped and cheered, and Mia threw her arms around them both. The sun dipped lower as guests sipped lemonade and cut slices of homemade cake. Children chased bubbles. Adults swayed to the soft guitar in the corner. It was not extravagant, but it was enough. More than enough. Elliot stepped away for a moment, needing air, or maybe just a breath. That was when he saw him. At the very back row, nearly hidden behind a tall potted fern, sat Colonel Richard Walker. No one had invited him. No one had expected him. And yet, there he was, dressed in a plain gray suit, a cane resting beside him, hands folded over his lap. He did not smile. He did not wave. He simply nodded once when their eyes met. Elliot froze, heart pounding, memories flooding all at once. But before he could move toward him, the older man stood slowly and began to walk away. As he passed the gift table, he placed something down. An old wooden box, small, polished, carefully held. Then he was gone. Elliot crossed the yard and opened the box. Inside was a model airplane, the same kind his father had given him at age 10. Same markings, same worn paint, same slight chip in the tail wing. Elliot's breath caught. On top of the model was a folded piece of paper, a single sentence handwritten in the neat, military precise script he knew so well. "I didn't know how to love you right, but I always did." Elliot stared at the words. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he sat on the bench nearby, holding the box in his lap like something sacred. Hannah joined him a few minutes later. She saw the open lid, read the note, and gently rested her head on his shoulder. He did not cry right away. But when Mia came bounding over in her bare feet, hair a mess, flower crown lopsided, and climbed onto the bench beside him, she reached for his hand without asking. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Elliot nodded. Then Mia smiled and said, "Now you have two girls who will love you right." That was when the tears came. Not loud, not broken, just quiet, steady tears that tasted like release, like healing, like a chapter closing without bitterness, and a new one beginning, with love. And in that moment, Under the soft lights and the wide sky, Elliot knew